Hey, everybody. Welcome back. Welcome back. I'm super excited to be still doing these author panels. And without any further delay, here's the introduction. As any author will tell you, there are so many unknowns when writing, publishing, and marketing your first business book. You should be very proud if you manage to get a book out of your head and into a format that can be purchased. Simply publishing is not really the goal, though, right? That's why I'm back with another author panel. Stay tuned for a frank conversation about the highs and lows of being a business author. All of these authors participated in one of my Kindle Cross-Promotion campaigns, during which business books are lowered to 99 cents. We worked together to spread the word, and many books made it to the top 10 in their categories, and the 30% hit number one, bestseller. Today's panel will dive into what it's really like to be a business author and share some tips on how to make the journey easier. We're here to learn from each other and find out how being part of a supportive author community can help. So let's hear from our amazing panelists and get some great insights into writing, publishing, and marketing your business book. We have with us today Janice Litvin, who wrote Banish Burnout Toolkit, which offers practical strategies and tools for overcoming burnout and regaining balance in one's life. Michele Molitor co-wrote I Am Perfectly Flawsome, How Embracing Imperfection Makes Us Better, which guides readers to celebrate their unique flaws and build self-esteem through self-acceptance. Yvonne Heimann wrote Mastering the Basics of ClickUp, Get Up and Running in No Time. This offers a practical guide to using ClickUp for better time management and project organization. Please join me in welcoming Janice, Michele, and Yvonne. Janice, I'm going to kick things off with you. I would love for you to share kind of a who you had in mind. Who's the ideal reader you had in mind when you wrote your book?
First of all, thank you so much, Robbie, for having me today. And thank you for all your hard work on our cross promotion and these interviews. So the reader I had in mind was any leader or manager, normally in a workplace, who would like to prevent burnout for themselves and their teams.
I love it. It's precise, and it's exactly what your book delivers on, too. Michele, what about you? Who do you have in mind when you were writing I Am Perfectly Flawsome?
So, my co author Tom Collins and I rewrote this for adults who might happen to be leaders, who might happen to be parents, who are dealing with toxic perfectionism that has taken over too much of their time, energy, and thoughts, and teach them how to transmute it into striving for excellence in a healthy way.
I love it. And I was there for your book launch party. You guys developed really good community around your launch. So we're going to talk more about that. Yvonne, thanks for being here. So you must have had a really particular audience in mind because yours is about a particular offer and tool product, kind of like when I wrote about using Zoom. So tell us a little bit about who these folks are that are using ClickUp.
So, hey, everybody, and thanks for having us, Robbie. Yes, as the title already says, it was specific for ClickUp users as well as project managers that use ClickUp. Having used ClickUp myself since 2018, the same questions came over and over and over again, and I saw the need for new users as well as teams that are just struggling with, wait, it does what? How do I do that? So put it nicely in a book so that a project manager easily can hand it out to the team, that a solopreneur that is starting out trying to figure out their business can just have a resource that makes sure they really have the basics of mastering ClickUp down.
Awesome. I'm going to ask you probably more questions about that later because I'm a little intrigued. Michele, I'm going to come to you now, though. I want you to go back to when you were first thinking about writing this book, and I wonder what success metrics you had in mind when you got started. Like, what was going to be important to you before you knew what you know now? Like, what did you
Well,
originally measure?
I'm a magic unicorn, Robbie, because Tom invited me to collaborate with him on this book. He had already started writing it, and I was just a yes. Like, I just want to play with Tom. This will be really fun to write this book. And it wasn't until after we got into it that we started, well, who are we writing this for and what are those metrics? And for me, given my work as a coach and hypnotherapist, it's really about being seen as an expert. This is my fourth book, technically, And so having that in the background and using it as a way to attract more speaking gigs and podcast interviews, etc., was really my goal for it. And selling books is nice too. It's a byproduct of that, but it's good to be able to, use it to get up on stage and inspire people and help them be better.
Yeah. Yvonne, what about you? How would you originally think about your success metrics or goals for writing a book?
So when I was writing the book, I had already the marketing planned out behind it. So the writing specifically was, hey, by the way, here's some resource, here's some resource. So my metrics were, how can I turn this book, similar to Michele, into more speaking, into more public appearance, but then also funnel those people that I'm talking to that are reading the book into my universe to be able to say, hey, here's additional resources. So my metric was never the actual sale. I was never really looking for being number one, even though we reached it on the launch as well as Prime Day. So one of the few that did it all the way to the number one. It was really, how can I use the book to, first of all, stay the person to go to for ClickUp and generate more leads for my different offers.
We're going to definitely dive deeper into how to leverage a book to grow a business and come back, because you're going to probably have some great examples for us. But now we're going to head over to Janice. Janice, same question to you, kind of those early metrics and early goals for the book as you were getting the writing process started.
Well, like everybody, I thought, well, wouldn't it be great to get number one in this and that category? And wouldn't it be great to sell thousands of books? I was able to sell some books to conferences that had little bookstores. That added another feature, and more importantly, another opportunity to talk to my audience one-on-one, because usually those book signings and book talks were a smaller, tighter knit audience. And I really love being able to talk to people one-on-one. So that was key for me. And I have every conference that I've spoken at that has a bookstore has bought my book.
That's awesome. So as you've moved through this process, you went from the writing stage to the, publishing, to the marketing and beyond. Has that definition of success evolved for you in some way since the book's been published?
Yes,
Janice.
Definitely. Yes. Thank you for asking. Yes. My metric now is more about selling speaking and workshops, not just speaking, but workshops as well. So speaking can be an hour or two, a workshop can be half a day or all day.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely helping me. And just like everyone has said, get my name out there. And when I have sort of branded the term Banish Burnout, I'm actually applying for a trademark on it. So now when I use the hashtag Banish Burnout, people know what I'm talking about.
That's awesome. Michele, how has your idea of success evolved over time? I know you came in wanting to get those speaking opportunities. Is there a particular measure now? Michele, to you.
I'm sorry, my internet went wonky. What was the question?
Yeah, sorry. Same question I just asked, which is basically, how has your definition of success evolved since the book has come out?
So for me, it's really about expanding my reach out onto the globe in different ways. The book is just another way to help expand the goodwill that I'm here to do as part of my purpose and mission on the planet, and helping people create greater acceptance, belonging, and connection with more dignity with themselves. So by being able to get in front of more audiences, to sell more books, to create and offer more workshops with the book and with the companion journal, then it's more of a feel good, and the money, the sales are an outcome of that, but really living on purpose is really the bigger picture of it all.
I just find it interesting that a lot of times when I'm talking to authors or writers, I should call them, before they're published, right? When they're still in these earlier stages, they can't see the full horizon of what's possible because the book doesn't exist. And that once the book comes out, you can leverage it all kinds of ways. But at first, it's like, I want to write a quality book. I want to publish a book. Like that's the bare minimum. And I'm like, okay, well, besides publishing,
Check.
What
Right.
else do you want to do? Let's just say you wrote a good book. And so, Yvonne, you feel like the exception to me about how well you thought about the next steps and how it was all integrated, and you had these offers. Now, the resources you were sending to people to, did they lead also to a paid offer? Was that all already, up and running, or did those get created sort of concurrent with the book?
As teaching my client to get their processes in order, I have to admit, no, it was not all done. So yeah, I'm the odd one out. I never wanted to write a book. I went through a non-happening deal to a publishing house telling me, yeah, we are doing this, and halfway through writing the book, they threw me out, and I'm like, okay, I have a book. I'm now just going to finish it. So I'm kind of like the odd one out that's like, put me on a camera and make me talk, but don't make me write, kind of thing. So it's always been a marketing vehicle for me, where, again, I'm the ClickUp queen. I've been talking about ClickUp since 2018. It's a little bit of an ego thing. I'm the first one that was on YouTube. I should be the first one writing a book on ClickUp. However, also on the other hand, it looks completely different stepping up in corporations and being like, hey, you are using this thing now, let's do it right. And with this also having those small users, not just corporations, but us, coaches, consultants, service provider, all those people, where I did have right away a landing page ready where I easily could send people over to Amazon for the 2 different versions of ebook and printed, as well as, hey, by the way, there are bonuses. Because in the whole process, I also learned, and the book is going to get an update, to do a big QR code in the first page rather than, hey, by the way, we have bonuses too. I saw that from Jeff Fenster, who has in the first few pages a huge QR code. Cool, we're going to update that. But all of my traffic generation and all of the things happened straight into the website. So I'm not even driving traffic to Amazon or the book directly, but rather the book landing page. And that's where over time things have grown, where it's like, okay, I have those grabbed my book. I know they have them because they're in my system. They say, hey, they grabbed the bonuses. Here is some additional video. Here's some additional training. Here's a freebie that I have. But all the way, by the way, you don't have to do this alone. I have a membership for you where you can come in and ask your questions and get personalized solutions specific to you. And guess what? Not just ClickUp, but your whole business.
That's amazing. Yvonne, I love both that you admitted you're human, which I think is helpful for all of us to be like, oh, so we can like keep tinkering and building and learning and growing. But also the thoughtfulness that you put in to the book. I mean, you were already clearly like very invested in this work, in this business, in the community that you were developing. Before we go further into the world of lead magnets and QR codes and all of that, I want to take you to the place that I play, which is reviews. And I'll just preface this by saying that this is kind of my playground, and I see it as the missing link between publishing and marketing. And I say this because reviews to me are social proof on the book's sales page on Amazon, and they last forever. Whereas the number one, which is, as Janice was saying, oh, I want to hit number one on these categories. That's what most authors are talking about before they published, but then it doesn't stay. And it doesn't change your bank account. And so I would just did a quick look, and it's interesting because as I've been doing these sort of like live on air reviews, but we've got you and Tom, Michele and Tom, they did a great job. So they've got 30 written reviews and 31 total ratings. One of the things I love about that is the closeness between the number of reviews and the number of ratings. I always find it so suspicious when an author has 132 ratings and 7 written reviews, but they walk around telling you they have 132 reviews. And you're like, no, because Amazon doesn't make you write something. Like, I'm sorry, but on the surface, it looks like they might, and you do a little digging, and you're like, not really at all. Or the people who don't really make the effort. So if you don't make a real effort, it's hard to get more than 20. And Janice, I saw you also had a good number here. You had 17 written reviews and 33 total ratings. And it looks like, Yvonne, this was not part of your launch process. You got 7 reviews and 9 total ratings. So it's something you can always do. We can always come back to it. This is not easy. So I'm going to go first to Michele and then to Janice to talk about how did you do it? Because honestly, anything over 20 takes a level of real focus and effort. I have over 200 reviews in all 3 of my books. I'm ridiculous. I don't even aim for that for my own clients. I say 50 or more is kind of the goal here. But Michele, how did you approach this piece of it? Was it something you were thinking about ahead of time? What was your process? What was sort of general thought pattern around it?
Well, I learned from this really smart guy. His name's Robbie Samuels, who I really love and adore because he's brilliant. And you really brought it to my attention, like, oh, right, that really does make a difference. And so, leading into the final stages of the book and the beta readers, we had over 30 beta reader reviews. Like, we had 25 beta readers, some of which who gave us multiple reviews to, like, here, use this wherever you want to. And so we were able to get many of them, not all of them, but many of them, to then go and write Amazon reviews as well. I was very consciously, like, rinse repeat, sending them the reviews they had already written for us, and like, here, now can you please go post this up on Amazon? And a lot of them did, not all of them. But then just putting it out there, and other folks who have written reviews for us, some we know, a lot of them we don't. So and my goal is to get to at least 50. I'm still continuing to work on that. Thank you for bringing that back front of mind, because it fell off the list for a moment. But yeah, it is a thing, and getting people to be thoughtful about what they write, and not just giving a rating. You know, it was a 5-star review. That it's something. So I'm like a dog with a bone. When I have a goal, I'm like, come on, don't you wanna leave a review? Because it's a great book. What about for the journal? Don't forget about the journal. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a process for sure.
it is a real process. There's a lot of hand holding, explaining the importance of it. And one of the things I've also recognized is like the reviews, who's writing them kind of matters as far as how it helps your business. Because you can, for instance, I bring this up all the time. I get referrals for both launches and relaunches, which I love. And I got a referral for 2 different relaunches, and both had like high 20s or low 30s in number of reviews. And I'm a little like, okay, like, what do you need help with? Because, you know, that's not bad. It's a pretty good start. You know, what you probably had a process. And they're like, oh, the book's not helping me grow a business. Like, I'm not getting leads. And I'm like, well, who are these 32 people? I'm thinking, well, these must be prospects and referral partners. And this one woman, she was just like, oh my gosh, my friends and family really came through for me and wrote reviews. And I was like, face palm, you know, like, unfortunately, they don't have budgets. So I think that's the other problem is when people think, oh, right, reviews, the way they go about getting reviews doesn't always help feed that pipeline to help them grow their business. And so, you know, I was just got off a call with some company that's like, we'll pay us and we'll send it out to our list of people and they'll write reviews for you. And I'm like, okay, but like, that's also not going to help you grow your business. You know, I'm like, you know, so Janice, how did you think about it initially? Why did you think it was important? Because clearly you put some effort in. And how did you kind of go about wrangling those people to actually post them?
Well, first of all, as you know, I'm a member of National Speakers Association, and that's what prompted me to write a book in the first place. So thank you. Yes. So every single colleague that I felt was successful in their own book and book marketing, as well as their speaking, I wrote to them before the book was finished because I wanted endorsements inside the book. And the coach I was working with at the time, my business speaking coach, not my author coach, said to me, send them options, send them 4 choices of what to speak about in their review that helped them, A, not have to read the whole book, which is your idea also, and B, what particular issue they could write about. And that created instant turnaround. And so I think I had maybe 16 or 14 in the book. And then after the book came out, of course, I sent them all a book and thanked them and sent them a bookmark and all that. And then I waited a week or two and I said, here's a copy of your endorsement. Would you please now go and post it on Amazon?
Yeah, that's great. The endorsement process I see as a sort of separate process, but there is an overlap like you just described. And if you usually you're handpicking the endorsements because you want certain people. I generally tell people you don't actually need more than 10 because it fills the first few pages and you can still put a few in your back cover, and more is not necessarily more in this case because people assume it's good. Like people aren't going to write a bad editorial review inside the book you publish. So my 2 cents is to look for people who have I don't know how to say, a notable title.
Yes. Yes, and they have the credibility that you seek. So people who were my mentors in the speaking and publishing world, those were the people I chose.
Janice, my life moved to the next level when I started getting requests for endorsements on books. And I was like, oh my gosh, what? Right. And they are a lot of work because usually you're asking people who are very busy and very important in their own way. And so there's often more hand-holding to get those reviews written than there would be for a review from a reader, that kind of thing. But what I'll share, because it got brought up earlier, is like, how do you get people to write a good review? Is I have 3 prompts that I generally share for business books. And one is, what's one takeaway or aha moment? The second is, what is something you learned that you're going to put into practice, or what's something you're going to do differently in your business or your life because of this book? And the third is, who would benefit from reading this book? If you answer just 2 of those 3 prompts in 2 sentences, you're going to create a really helpful review, which is actually, to me, more important than a 5-star review. So I remember I wrote my second book, and it was about how do you build an audience before you try to sell something. And it was geared towards entrepreneurial women in their 50s and beyond who were trying to grow their impact and income through a new revenue stream. That's my smallest big results book. And a guy who read my first book, who's a friend of my wife's, read the second book and was like, eh. And he wrote me review, and I collect them in advance through a Google form. And I wrote back and I said, hey, just for some context, this is who this book is for. And you don't actually check any of these boxes. Maybe give some context. I don't care what what rating star you do. And he did. And that actually ended up being a much stronger. It was like, I loved Robbie's first book. This one really wasn't for me, but I think who it would be great for is, and he shared that. And he sort of was like, I'm not in the world of business. I don't have my own business. I don't want my own business. I learned a thing or two, but I really think the people who would benefit was, and he gave it like a 3 or 4 star. And you know what? His gets read more than everyone else's because you know what I'm saying? It stands out because it's not a 5-star. All the rest are 5-star. So it's helpful though. And I always make this joke, but it's true. If my wife is into romance books, and I am by default because she feeds my Libby. And if someone's got a 1-star, oh my God, this book is full of smut, she's like, what's the book? So one person's yuck is someone else's yum. Yvonne, how do you want to jump in?
Is another person's treasure, right?
Yes. Right. Yvonne, how are you thinking about, I mean, even just to get the reviews you got, obviously took a little effort. What were you thinking about them? And now maybe we've changed your mind about the importance of them. What are you thinking now about them, Yvonne?
The reviews actually were not on my radar whatsoever. As I mentioned, it was a struggle to get the book out in general. We had so much more planned. We had so much more planned on the launch. I had planned to actually have pre-readings and the forward and all the things. And in the process of things, I just had to drop something. And the goal was getting the book out and getting people into my universe. That happened perfectly fine. So next time around, I might not try to go after a publishing deal to begin with and go self-publishing right away. so that I actually can implement the things that I want to. So how I polish that up a little bit in the longer run is in the email sequence that follows up when people sign up for the book bonuses. And it's a one-time mention somewhere in an email where it's like, hey, by the way, I am more than happy to send you some swag if you leave a review on Amazon, and make sure that I know it's your review, because I'm going to need your shipping address and your actual name. I don't know if that aligns with Amazon. And I think I had 2 people actually take me up on that. One, because I mentioned it. Hey, by the way, you just created a TikTok video of unpacking my signed version of the book. Go leave the review on Amazon. I'll send you some swag over. And the other one literally saw it in the email and the follow-up, left the review, and did a good one. It's one of the business reviews that's on there from an implementer. And it yes, was it on the radar? Did I have the time to implement it? No.
Yeah. So a couple of thoughts on that, Yvonne. One is you can at any point do a relaunch and focus on this aspect. And the reason I think it would be helpful for what you're talking about is, in my version of this, you, the author, are going to cull through your network, whether it's your LinkedIn, your Facebook, whatever lists you have, and you're going to identify likely prospects and referral partners, which as a business owner are the kind of people you should be reaching out to. And you're going to use this book relaunch, anniversary, new edition, whatever, as a reason for you to reach out to them. And you're going to get them on your launch team, your relaunch team, and you're going to guide them through writing a review. But it's going to get you into conversation, which leads to new revenue opportunities and new media opportunities. So, Michele, hope is not lost if you're still aiming for 50 or more. You just need to kind of like create a hook around it. Your birthday, the book's birthday, a particular international day of, any random Tuesday. It does not actually matter. It just you need a time.
Today is Random Tuesday. Congratulations.
Yeah. Hey, everybody. It's Random Tuesday day. So why did it happen on Saturday this year? That's weird. Okay. Sorry. That was a bad dad joke. And then, and like, you know, the thing I was thinking, since we all met through the Kindle Cross-Promotion campaign, and you're already dropping your Kindle book to 99 cents for like a week and a half for that could be an interesting way to time this, because getting people ahead of time to kind of commit that they're going to buy your book and leave you a review. So like they buy it during that 99 cent period, whether it's like even the week before that thing, and you say, can you publish it by that Friday of Black Friday, in order to like give them a deadline? Because then all the people who come in and see your book on Black Friday and Small Business Saturday and all that, they're seeing a book that has even more reviews. And so it kind of galvanizes. Yvonne, let me bring you back in here.
So, funny thing that happened completely unplanned during our Prime Day deal event that we just ran. ClickUp had a webinar and brought me on as a guest, which means I now, at the end of the training that I delivered, was like, guys, perfect timing. It's Amazon Prime Day. Get the bonuses, get the book. And I need to look at the numbers, but that was a huge spike in connection with the spike we created, and then the webinar with it.
Right.
It was the perfect timing, and it was not planned. Universe was just on my side.
Yes, I love when those things happen. We had someone the first time I ran the Kindle Cross-Promotion, they had just published in November, like 2 weeks before Black Friday, and so they had no launch plan. So we collectively help them actually like climb the ranks in sales, get the visibility in the book, get those early reviews. Like they were like, oh my gosh, this is so perfectly timed. So that's what it made me think, oh wow, this could be a good, twice a year, you're going to drop the price and be part of this. Use that as a little push for the people who are in the know to help you write reviews. All right, I'm going to move past reviews. Boy, I could talk about this all day. I want to know, what was a challenge for you besides getting reviews? And I'm going to go to Janice. Janice, was there something in particular between the writing, editing, publishing, marketing? Like, what was a particular challenge? This is sort of an insight you're going to share that someone listening is going to be like, ooh, I didn't even know to be thinking about that. what's something you're going to share?
First of all, I want to say I'm taking notes. Everything Yvonne says, I'm actually filling up pages here. So thank you, Yvonne.
Yeah.
I had a few challenges. I'm trying to think. Okay. One of the biggest lessons I learned, so I quote unquote self-published. What that means is I hired out every step. I hired a developmental editor. I procured the cover from 99 Designs or whatever it's called. And then I hired out the interior design, who was also going to do the Amazon piece and the ISBN number and all that. Well, what I take responsibility for this delay that happened because I neglected to ask her what her timeline was. I assumed that once she started on my book, she was going to finish it. One day, 3 weeks had gone by since the last time I had heard from her. And I'm like, I wonder what's going on. So I sent her an email and she was busy accepting other gigs that she's more known for. Her interior design work was sort of a fun aside because she's good at it and she's artistic, but she was doing other work in the middle of my process. So that delayed us by an extra month or two. And needless to say, I was a little bit irritated, but I learned the lesson that you have to ask every detail when you're dealing with a vendor. When can I expect? And is there anything that will get in the way of your meeting these deadlines?
Project management.
I got a hot tip for you though, Janice.
Michele, go for it.
Go ahead, Robbie. I was just gonna say I got a hot tip for you, Janice. It just so happened, and I lucked out in this aspect because my co-author Tom Collins, he and his wife, their business is master book builders. So Yvonne is the developmental editor and the coach, and Tom is the book designer and gets it all up onto Amazon and whatnot. And they're definitely a one-stop shop. So I got the beauty of all of that all rolled into developing my book, so I didn't have to think about it. So I really lucked out, and it made it such a beautiful and fun process. So.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of comes up with, how are you going to get the book that is written published? And I've since learned this term, assisted self-publishing.
Oh.
The overlap between that and hybrid publishing seems to be a gray area. Some hybrid publishers either offer an imprint, meaning they are your publisher on record, or they have a way to help you get a specific publisher. But most seem to basically be paid up front to guide you through the publishing process. The difference between that and assisted self-publishing seems to be no daylight. I don't know.
Now, there is one big thing that I have learned in the process. I completely self-published on Amazon and learned this later on. You cannot pre-sell a hardcover as standard Amazon seller.
Right.
Now, there are services out there that you can publish through. So it's a small rate. It's really not a big fee to publish through them. But as Robbie said, they are pretty much becoming your publisher. However, using that service, you now can fully self-publish, which I was able to do with just 2 team members, one for the cover, one for just formatting the inside. That was it that I worked with. But what they do is pretty much, yes, you submit the same files, but because you are publishing through them, you can pre-sell hardcovers, which Amazon, soft or hard books, but physical books, which Amazon doesn't allow you.
And I step around that by not having pre-sales as part of my process. I do a soft launch instead of a pre-sale. So it's a different format because I'm mostly working with self-published authors and know that exclusively. But knowing all these things and thinking about how much time and talent you have when it comes to project management is a big factor. If you're a details person like I am, I love project managing my own process. But then you end up with the questions that Janice had, which is like asking people about their deliverables and making sure timelines are happening and making sure all that happens. Or you can interview and find the hybrid publishing house that's going to handle things. So yes, major challenge there. Michele, was there a particular challenge? I mean, you sounds like you got handed such an incredible opportunity to co-author with someone you wanted to on a topic you were excited about. They offered all the services. what threw you off? What was the challenge or learning that you had to overcome?
Yeah, it was really gift to me on a platter, which I didn't even realize at the outset. I'm like, oh yeah, I get to write something, right? Yeah, I get to create things. But then there's so many details that I didn't even know that I didn't even know. And I was so grateful to have Tom Collins and his wife Yvonne DeVita, who knew all of those things, all of those steps, and guided me and us through the process, right? The challenges that still came up along the way, ironically, because we were writing a book overcoming perfectionism, was getting it just right. Yvonne would be like, stop rewriting it. It's done. Let it go. We're moving on. I'm like, but she's like, no, no. So it was great to have her there kind of coaching us from the sidelines to go, it's good. Just let it go. If there's any other little tweaks, we'll find it later, but you got to move on to the next chapter. So it was really fun and perfectly flawsome.
Michele, if you I feel like people write the books that they wish existed in the world. And so clearly you were a client as well as the person who could be teaching, right? So like you were like, I'm the one who needs this book, which is why you're also struggling with letting go of it being perfect.
Oh, right. I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Yeah.
For sure. I was a graphic designer in my former life, right? So, I mean, Tom and I designed the cover. Tom and I designed the interior because I'm like, I got to put my finger on that, right? And
Awesome.
so it was very, very intentional about how it all came together. But it really flowed beautifully and easily. I mean, as I was thinking about the questions that you had sent us for this, it's really for those folks listening who are new to writing a book. It takes tenacity, it takes stick-to-itiveness, it takes being able to step back to look at the bigger picture of what it is, and then coming back to getting down in the weeds again, and having, whether it's you or somebody else on your team who can really manage all of the details, because there's a lot of pieces and parts that go into the process. From writing the book is one thing, but then publishing the book and marketing the book is a whole nother ball of wax, right? And it just continues on for as long as you choose. So
I had the realization
blessed.
I had the realization for my first book when it was getting to the editing stage that oh my God, it's a good book. I want people to read this book. And that the deadline I'd been counting down, which is the publication date, was actually the very latest that I could start my marketing, that I should actually be already starting even sooner. And that's sort of the beginning of the launch, the launch of the marketing plan. And I happen to like that part more than the writing. And so I delayed my publication by 6 weeks to build up a plan so that I had a goal of getting 100. I mean, out of nowhere, I was like, I'm gonna get 100 reviews. And then I just like focused and built a whole process. Yvonne, I actually have a different question for you, if that's okay.
All right. I'm the special one out to just follow up really quick on you why I was laughing, which the ones listening didn't see. My audience, my newsletter, my social media followed me through the whole process. I'm like, they didn't see the first initial contract that fell through. That was a year of my time trying to land this. But after that was a no. All of the struggles, the writing of it, the, oh my God, I just want to talk into a camera and not type anymore. All of that was going on my social media and in my email list. So I had a wait list for the book literally for over a year before the book went live.
Wow. I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a great marketing plan. And that's where I was actually going to go. And I think I always tell people, don't write in silence, don't write in private, write out and loud, write in public. And make sure people know you're doing this. They're along for the journey. And it doesn't matter if the title changes, the cover changes, the deadline, the launch date changes, any of those things. Like, no one actually is paying close attention the way you are, but it just brings them in, and it usually ends up being a better book. Other than that, which is amazing that you had like an audience kind of waiting for this book, I'm curious what your most effective marketing strategy was for book sales. Like, you define what that means, but was there something in particular that you were able to do that led to good book sales?
That is actually with this specific book, one lesson that I have learned. So coming back around, I didn't see much of struggles where I'm like, oh my God, things were just burning down. I just dropped a couple of things. I have one specific plan with this book to get it into corporate, right? That's one of my goals. So the lesson learned right now is like, yeah, but how do I figure out which corporations are using ClickUp? It's not a leadership type topic that I can send to an HR manager or whatever it is, where I can just reach a general corporation that I think would align best. So that was one of my big lessons where I'm like, sweet, I don't need to send a company that's using Asana a ClickUp book. So that is one of the lessons I learned that I am funneling into my next book, where it's like, okay, that's where I can easier reach the right market, because can I do some research if they're using ClickUp? But guess what? I'm going to get spammed like there's no tomorrow the moment I start digging into it and have people in my email that says, hey, I can give you all the list and just pay me this much money.
I'm actually kind of curious, Yvonne, if is there like a Facebook group or a LinkedIn group for ClickUp users?
There's a huge Facebook group, yes.
So you can go dig around in there and see if you can learn from that, like if people have companies, and then go to LinkedIn. It takes, I would say this is a good VA role.
Yeah.
So there is tools that track your website.
Yep, that's true. The pixels
that now can also get connected with AI that check your cookie settings and potentially can connect information that are allowed to collect on your website. It's no personal information, but connected with your LinkedIn cookie.
Yeah. All right. This is very interesting. I'm gonna leave this for another day. Janice, I know your answer was to get your book into these bookstores at these conferences. That's a cool way to sell lots of books. Michele, was there a particular thing you were able to do to kind of really market and particular book sales, which I know it's not about the book sales, but I'm always curious if someone has a good strategy for either lots of individual sales all at once, kind of like at a bookstore, or a bulk set of books being purchased.
Yeah, so the book, one of our beta readers happens to be the chief learning officer at UC Berkeley here in the Bay Area. And she loved the book so much, it resulted in an invitation to do a keynote talk at UC Berkeley for the Women's Initiative Conference in October, which I'm super excited about. So it's just one example of giving keynote talks and speaking at conferences, because then they come and they're like, we'd like to buy your book and give them away to all of the participants. So, we're going to buy 500 copies of your book. So that's always a great thing. So I'm doing more and more of that. I'm getting more and more talks lined up to talk about things that are part of the book, but not about the book specifically. So that's been
awesome.
working really well.
I'm really happy to hear that. Earlier we were talking about the book and how it positioned to be helping your business grow. And it seems like some of you had a clear pipeline or, pathway from the book and connecting it to your business goals. And I just want to call that out, because for anyone listening, even if it means delaying writing the book in order to get the offers figured out, and audience figured out, and like narrow that down, so you're not just doing a generic leadership book, but you're doing this nuanced piece, whether it's about manage burnout or it's about perfectly flossom, right? You're picking a particular audience within the world of business. I just think we often have people, particularly in the National Speakers Association, it feels like you just have to have a book. And so when I first started writing a book, it was just like having a website or having a business card. Like I had to have a book. And then you do the work to narrow down that audience. So I'm just really excited, because it feels like the three of you all had a real good concept of what that looked like going in. And other than Yvonne, who I know talked a lot about having, a little lead magnets and offers and resources throughout her book. Did the other two of you, Janice, Michele, did you also have sort of lead magnets and resources in the book? Michele says yes. Janice says yes. Yeah, so that's great. I mean, that's the kind of this is the stuff that if you're self-publishing, you may not know to do.
Yeah.
You need a coach, you need a consultant, you need
Right.
someone who's done this before to kind of, point that kind of stuff out. So I'm curious if you have a particular awesome story. I'd love, just wave your hand if your book allowed something to happen in your life. Because having this book, you were now invited to, had access to, I'm seeing a couple of nods. Janice, did you have something? All right.
Yes. So as a result of the book, and like Yvonne and Michele have talked about, I did send the book to particular key prospective clients. So because this is kind of funny, but because I'm from Houston, I targeted the Houston chapter of SHRM because I wanted to go home and visit my family. Plus, it's the Houston market is one, I think they are considered the largest SHRM chapter in the US or something like that. So I pitched to them to come and do a workshop. And I was thinking, okay, it'll be a 1 hour workshop. Of course, in that case, I actually sent them a hard copy of the book. And I had gone out before the book, right before the book was ready, and bought 100 or 200 large pink padded envelopes, so that when that envelope landed on someone's desk, they're like, wow, this is pink. What is this? Rather than the typical beige or white envelope. The post office charges me more, even though I do send them a media rate. Anyway, so the Houston chapter of SHRM contacted me and said, not only do we want you to do a workshop, we want you to do an all-day workshop. I said, sure, no problem. I had never done an all-day workshop based on my book, but you know what they say, make a commitment and then you'll invent it. So I called my friend who I know you know, Robbie, and that's Izzy Gazelle. And I had his book. He's an business improv master and a colleague and friend. And I had his book, and I went through the book looking for particular improv games that fit the chapters of my book. And then he said, call me and let me know what your plan is. And I told him the plan. He said, that could work. What about this? What about that? And so I laid out exactly, with a master trainer handout for myself, exactly everything I was going to do, with the exact instructions, exactly what I was going to say. And the plan is just a plan. If things don't go exactly as planned, that's okay. But having a plan made me feel anchored. They had a great time. I had them up laughing for almost every piece of the day. They were up out of their chairs laughing. And then the beauty is in the discussion after.
That's amazing. I love this. And this is what we hope for when we are planting seeds in people's minds about writing a book. I want them to hear about those kinds of stories, those outcomes that they couldn't even imagine. It's like climbing to the top of a mountain peak and realizing you're part of a whole mountain range. And there's a lot more peaks to choose from that you couldn't have seen when you're in the bottom of the first mountain. It's like writing the book and publishing the book well is about getting to the top of that first mountain. And then it's like, oh, wow, I could do this and this and this. So in a moment, I'm going to be coming to each of you with asking you, like, what's your piece of advice that you would give someone who was writing a book to help them grow a business? We're going to go back to alphabetical order again. So Janice, we'll kick things off with you. Before we do that, we're going to have a quick word from our sponsor. All right, Janice, kick us off. What advice would you give someone writing a book to help them grow their business? Number
one, I personally would not worry about book sales. If the book is of high quality and your messaging is what I hate to say the word perfect, because I'm also a recovering perfectionist, but I like to do let's just call it the very best job. The best advice that I was given that I would recommend to everybody is hire a developmental editor before you begin to write, because they can act as your book coach. They help you lay out the chapters. They help you understand that, well, we have to have consistency in what happens in each chapter, not just you're going to write, but you're going to write about that bit. Then you're going to have an example. And then you're going to have, my book is a workbook. So then we had the workbook part. So I never thought of that. I never thought that anything had to be consistent. I thought you just write. And I'm really picky about images. Not everybody is. I actually spend double what most authors spend because I'm really picky about using color visuals. And so be thinking about the color visuals, but really make the biggest piece of advice is getting the developmental editor first. and let
Brilliant.
them know your plan. And then they work with you as you move along as a coach.
That's right. Don't work on this all by yourself. Definitely check in with someone, even if it's someone else who's gone through this process. Michele, what advice would you share?
Yeah, definitely having a coach, guide, book editor through the process is really super important. But even more importantly, having a vision for what's the purpose of this? Why are you taking the time to write it? What do you hope to achieve by getting that particular message out into the world? But then taking it one step further, and I didn't do this, and it's been an afterthought, but like, oh well, what's next, and then what's next, and what's next. So my book turned in there's it's now got a journal that goes with it. It's got the audio version that goes with it, and when I was on vacation I whipped up a children's version of it. So and then you can start to think, well, what's the swag that goes with it? We've got hats, we've got mugs, we've got t-shirts, we've got this, that, and the other thing. So there's so many other ways that you can start to market it as well. And so as a creative thing, I'm like, ooh, that's the fun part. What other fun things can we make that goes along with it that just helps create a Flossom movement, right? Because that's what we're trying to do. It's more than just a book. It's a movement of, well, how do we just embrace our imperfections and embrace the imperfections of others?
Awesome. All right. In a few moments that we have here, Yvonne, quick tip from you, and then we're going to go around and share contact info.
It's going to be a really quick one. Take a breather and just write or voice write. Just do. There's so much you can do. There's so many people you can work with. Just do. Get it out of your head or it's never going to happen.
I love that. Janice, back to you. How can people find you and follow your work?
LinkedIn, LinkedIn, or my website, JaniceLitvin.com. Email Janice@JaniceLitvin.com. And you can see me on LinkedIn all day, every day.
Yeah, we're going to put all those links, including your LinkedIn, social posts, and all that, your book links in the show notes. Michele, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me at Michele with one L, MicheleMolitor.com. You can learn all about the book at IamPerfectlyFlossom.com. Facebook, Instagram, find me at Rapid Rewire. And yeah, I'm happy to chat with those who are curious to know more.
That's awesome. Yvonne?
I'm going to make it really simple. AskYvi.com. That's AskYvi.com. I'm connected to my phone, so pretty much whichever social media platform you want to connect at, you'll find it on the website, and I'll be there.
Everyone, we're going to put all these show notes at bizbookpublishinghub.com. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks so much for being on the show. Cheers, everyone.
Thank you so much.